Hello, everyone. It's your boy, your favorite gentleman, Marcus of the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today, I have a very prolific man here on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show today, Mr. Evan W. Turk, Esquire. And he is a distinguished legal authority known for his proficiency in family law and wealth strategies, accomplished author, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and founder of the American Rights Alliance. He's also the founding attorney and shareholder of his own practice. Mr. Evan W. Turk is here on the Gentleman Style Podcast stage to help us peel back some layers and ultimately be informed, be educated, and do better in life. And so I can't hold this powerhouse speaker back. We are going to get into this and we're going to dive into this conversation today. And so without further ado, help me welcome to the stage the incredible, amazing Mr. Evan W. Turk, Esquire.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, sir. It is no small task. And again, thank you again. I said this backstage, but thank you for making time today and giving up your time to be on the podcast today. And we can have an engaging conversation. Sir, your resume is extensive and your career is prolific and profound, and it goes it goes and goes and goes. Tell me, when did it start for you? I want to start with a softball question. When did it start for you to get into law? Because that is a unique industry that most people would be afraid of. Why did you get into practicing law? When did it start for you?
Uh, um, it's funny that it's a great question. So the simple answer is I got into a altercation in what was it, like around seventh grade, and I was protecting a friend who was being bullied. And the requirement, if you were being bullied, I mean, not being bullied, but if you were in an altercation, we were in camp, sleepaway camp, is that you had to go home. And I convinced my counselors. I negotiated into the right solution, and I realized that I can take a bad situation and make it into a good one. At the same time, realizing that sometimes you have to do what you have to do in order to, you know, be a gentleman now, but be a man and do the right thing. And sometimes those things are challenging, and that's what I did, and that's what started my career. I realized that I could discuss issues logically, even if it was against my, you know, protecting my own self. And I realized it's much easier to do it for others because you're not as emotional.
Absolutely. So you were standing up. Well, how old were you when you did that? Do you remember?
I think probably was 12, give or take a year. Yeah.
So you've been advocating for human rights since the young age of 12. Incredible. Incredible.
Yeah.
And so again, you have a prestigious career. And so can you speak a little bit to your family background? What was it like growing up for you? What was mom and dad like? What were those influencers that made you the man you are today?
Oh, I had the best parents. My mom recently passed 2 years ago,
I'm
and
sorry.
oh, I appreciate horrible 73 years old to cancer. But my childhood was like Leave It to Beaver. It was just kind of an innocent childhood. I didn't really learn what stress was, although my parents struggled. My father lost his job for over 6 months. It was not centered around material things, but at the same time, I never felt like um, we needed, or there was something I wasn't receiving. But, feeling like that you had everything you possibly could have in your parents, which I did. And that was my childhood.
And mom and dad poured into you. And again, I'm sorry for your loss. My condolences for the loss of your mom to cancer. But dad's still with us.
Yes, yes. He's speak to him every day. Um, you know, throughout the day sometimes. And, you know, it was interesting because there are some times in family structures where you become more of the parent view, a parent, and it switches around. But we go back and forth. It's like ping pong. Sometimes I'm the one he's asking for advice. Other times he's the one asking me for advice. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I love it. A good relationship with dad and mom, and so I love that. I love that. I want to fast forward a little bit. In June 12, 2020, you ran for you announced your candidacy for state committeeman of Palm Beach County Republican Executive Committee. Um,
Hmm.
what inspired you? What motivated you? What was your goals and aspirations to do that? Because that's not an easy decision.
No, I was asked, and there were things that I saw that I wanted to challenge, and it was kind of like in my opinion, a, uh, a boys club of people that didn't really have to compete in order to get their position. And I wanted to remind them that they had to make promises, keep the promises. And if they don't keep the promises, that there's going to be someone that's going to challenge their viewpoints and make them work for their hard-earned seat. So I did that with a goal, a budget of $0 and 0 cents. And what was also really interesting things that
Mr. Evan W. Turk, Esquire, on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Sir, what you were speaking to running for the committeeman in Palm
yeah,
Beach,
state
Florida.
committee man. Yeah.
What, and you said you were asked, so you were approached. This was not something in your on your to-do list. This wasn't on your wish list or your board to do, but you wanted to challenge what you were seeing in the current Palm Beach area, and you wanted to let people know that you are a force to be reckoned with. Did I understand that correctly?
I think that's the best way you could explain it. There was no desire to run for office, although people have shared with me that I should run for office, but no desire to do so. But I got a life lesson. Running for office is kind of crazy, and you deal with things that phone calls, for example, that last 45 minutes to get one vote, and you don't even know after that call if you got that vote. You have to go for a lot more than one vote. And it was an uphill battle, but the whole point was to make that point that you shouldn't run for office without competition and promises, so that you can get promises to your constituents and make sure that you live by that. And that if you don't follow those promises, somebody's going to run for office and may eventually take your seat. And yeah, to spend a lot more money than my $0 and 0 cent budget in order to
Abs-
prevail. And it also learned the beauty of politics and the not so beautiful side of politics.
Would you run again
Uh,
in any
never
political
say
capacity?
never say never, but mostly say never.
Okay, that's fair.
But you never know.
You are you have done, again, your resume is extensive. You've done numerous things, including you are the CEO at American Rights Alliance, correct? This is and on your website is done very beautifully. The American Rights, I'll read you guys right off of the website. The American Rights Alliance is a 501c nonprofit organization dedicated to defending the First Amendment, protecting election integrity, and ensuring transparency in democratic processes. And so, as a CEO, so I wanted to ask you, Mr. Turk, what those are very direct and specific things and targets to go after. Was that part of what you were seeing in Palm Beach, Florida? And now you are the CEO of a nonprofit that spearheads. Are those near and dear to your heart? What was the core mission for you, um, being a part of that nonprofit, this nonprofit?
It's quite interesting. At first, I was just asked, just like my stint for politics. I was just given an opportunity, and they said, "We would like you to do this," and I didn't really think anything of it. I was on the advisory board for um, it was an advisory council for the American Cancer Society when I was in my 20s. And then just by luck or just life itself, I happened to have a meeting with Charlie Kirk in about 2018, and we had a dinner together. And the next thing I know, I was on his on Turning Point USA's advisory board, um, advisory council. Let me clarify: it's not on the board; it's you advise to the board, the advisory council, and it was such an amazing honor. And um, I got to actually.
Cut out, but
All right.
you can continue.
All right. Hold on one second. Which gave me a further step into understanding the challenges of running a 501c3. Although I didn't run a 501c3, I understood the mechanics and the challenges. And then when I was asked to to create this charity, it was an honor. I mean, it's one of those things that when somebody asks you to do it and gave you the means to do it, you really just said, "This is my life's mission." And it was challenging at first, still challenging. Every day is a challenge. You're juggling two things: running a law practice, running a charity, and they're both full-time positions. Also, I'm a father of two, and try to be there with my children. So everything's a challenge, but it's worth it.
Absolutely, absolutely. How do you define American rights in today's political climate? And who do you believe is the most at risk of losing them?
Wow. We're in a, so first question, how do you define, I think American rights, it's defined very clearly in the Constitution. And, we focus on the First Amendment, freedom of speech. It's not there to protect things that you agree with. It's really there to protect things you don't, to have open discourse, because without open discourse, you don't have a free society. So, what we really see the challenges right now is that we're in a weird situation, at least from my viewpoint, that a lot of our freedoms have been taken away. We haven't even realized the extent of it. It started out after 9/11 with the Patriot Act. Um, it extended into it's okay to spy on U.S. citizens. It's now okay to spy on your opponent if you're running for U.S. Office as President of the United States. It's fine. You could make up some bogus report and get a FISA application approved by a judge to spy on your opponent. Um, you have a media that is not going to focus on one side, but it's going to focus on its own agenda, and you don't really understand what its agenda is. And all of a sudden, you see people being prosecuted for crimes that you don't even know or can articulate what the crime is. And this is not a free and just society when it's only free and just to those who have the viewpoint that you agree with, not the viewpoint you disagree with. And we shouldn't be a society, or we are not a society, a free society, if that we're putting people behind bars for expressing difference in opinions or questioning elections or asking questions that, you know, even if you're wrong, they deserve answers, not like you're a child and say, because I said so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to ask um, Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel and how his situation was handled with the constant ebb and flow and the constant cancellations and then coming back and now there's rumor or talks of being canceled again. How do you see how that situation was handled? What would you advise any of your clients or the foundation would advise any of the clients as far as in regards to freedom of speech?
This is a great question because it goes into exactly what I said 30 seconds ago. I thought it was abhorrent, but let a free market choose what he should be able to say or not. His ratings were horrific. Um, I was just listening to a video on YouTube about a week ago, and it made a very strong point about um, all these late night shows that all of a sudden you had Colbert started. Actually, it was someone else, but Colbert led the way. Where it used to be when Johnny Carson did the late night show, Leno did the late night show, you touched upon political uh, issues, but you didn't focus on it and you didn't basically share whether or not you're a Democrat or a Republican. It was let's make fun of everyone, whether it was George Bush, Barack Obama. But when Trump got into office, things changed. And hopefully um, they'll get back to some sort of common sense. But right now, you know what the number one show that took all of the late night shows, the place that's the number one show is Fox. It's at right now. People are watching Fox News at night for their entertainment rather than all of the other shows. Let the people decide. And sometimes you realize the people aren't deciding because when these shows are losing money, and Greg Gutfeld is the biggest, you know, viewership of all of them, and he doesn't really technically have a late night show. Something's going on, and why will businesses like Jimmy Kimmel, or actually it's Stephen Colbert, lose millions of dollars every single year to keep a show on the air that is so polarizing that half the audience can't watch it? You now just decreased your audience by 50%. Why does that make sense? Capitalism should dictate that. But they're continuing to pay for shows where they're not making money. But as to taking Jimmy Kimmel off the air, there's a part of me that said, yeah. But there's another part that says, this is exactly what I'm fighting for. I don't agree with him. And
That
that's,
they shouldn't have taken him off the air because of what he said.
yeah, but it was abhorrent to say it. It was disgusting, tasteless. Um, but he had more reviews the day he got back on the air. I mean, if you talk about getting more viewership, that was the best thing you could possibly do. Take him off the air for a few days and then put him back because nobody was watching him, but everyone was watching him the day he got back.
I think I follow what you mean because we've now seen we now live in a world where unfortunately people having an opinion, people having a voice, and now we're retaliating, and
Yeah,
that has led to the unfortunate death of Charlie Kirk just
yeah,
because he has a belief or he has a stance or he has a viewpoint. We live in a society where we're taking action even if it means by force, and that's scary.
yeah,
That's really scary. But I
yeah,
also see the other side of the coin of what you're saying. Freedom of speech can be funny because should you be allowed to say whatever? I mean, all like practically anything.
yeah,
And that's also kind of a slippery slope as well.
yeah,
What is the line? Where do you draw the line on what someone can say? Because I think there are things that, hey, you can say what you want to say, but there's
right.
consequences to what you say. That's why when you go in a courtroom, right, the judge lets you know your rights. and what
Right.
you say will be used against you in a court of law.
Yeah.
So there's consequences. You always have the ability to say what you want, but your thoughts there. I think I follow what you're both sides of the coin, and it's I also think viewership is shifting. People are losing faith in CNN, Fox News, all these different things, but then they'll listen to Seth Rogen, right? They'll follow
Yeah.
him
Joe
and
Rogan, right?
Joe
Yes.
Rogan. Sorry, forgive
Yeah.
me, Joe Rogan.
No, I don't mean to correct you, but there is a Seth Rogen. I'm sure Seth Rogen's the actor.
Yes, I apologize. Forgive me, but
No, it's
Joe.
funny. It's funny because this lady I know, in the cover, I live in Boca Raton, and on the cover of Boca Raton is Seth Rogen, and I guess he was on the cover of Boca Observer. Someone said, "You look just like Seth Rogen." I said, "Seth Rogen." At first, I thought Joe Rogan. It's the same mistake that I made the other day.
Okay. Well, I feel better. Thank you for your humility and empathy with me. You are absolutely. This is an incredible conversation. You were the former attorney to now President Donald J. Trump.
Mhm.
But you also expressed earlier that you learned a great deal from about politics when you ran for committeeman of Palm Beach County
Yeah.
Executive Committee. Um, what did you learn about executive power and constitutional boundaries while working with President Donald Trump?
Well, let me be clear. So the way I worked with the president is there's a gentleman by the name of Peter Ticton. Peter Ticton went to high school with the president. They were. Peter says that Trump calls him his oldest friend. I think that's because he's actually older than the president. And but they've known each other since New York Military School, which was a New York Military Academy. I apologize, stand corrected. It was a military school in New York that they were in the same platoon, call it. And when an opportunity presented itself to be local counsel, I teamed up with Peter and handled some issues regarding the president as local counsel. And it really opened the door to really a lot more than it's kind of like you see the iceberg, but you don't know what's below it. And then you get to see below it and you say, wow, the problem's a lot worse than you thought it was. You only, see just the tip of the iceberg. And it's scary. I mean, love the guy, hate the guy, indifference, but question what happened during his presidency. I mean, really question why this man was impeached not once, but twice, even once when he was out of office. They tried to put him in jail on charges that really make no sense. And, if it was Biden that went through the same thing, you would have to question, your moral integrity. I mean, does it make sense to take somebody who is running for office and as a consequence for not liking their opinions, risking trying to put that person in jail? So if you do that, what's going to happen when that person's in office? They're going to try to do the same thing. Ultimately, you're going to have a situation where you're not going to get qualified people run for office because they could find charges on anybody and put anyone behind bars. We're dealing with a case right now with the charity. It was the first time I've ever seen this where somebody may go, or two lawyers are being charged criminally for doing their jobs as lawyers questioning the election. And the judge changed the law halfway through it. So they didn't break the law, but he changed the law, not the legislative branch, but it was the judicial branch. The judge was changing the law, saying you have to do it this way. And I do a weekly show on a network called Real America's Voice on Saturdays at 4 o'clock, and we just aired today, and it's mind-boggling. But getting back to what you were asking, it was just being in a situation where you get to be I don't know whether it's blessed, just whatever that word is, it's just unique, and you see it,
Yeah.
and you realize that this is not a free society if we accept this. And we're so much hatred on both sides of the aisle that we can't have decency anymore. There is no decency. I mean, the way these politicians, senators, and congressmen talk to one another, get into verbal altercations, and all they're trying to do is get a video out there on social media that says, "Look how cool I am," or "Look how I put this person, I shut this person down," and not realizing that person's doing the same thing against that. It's coming from both sides. It's
Yeah.
just whatever your viewpoint is.
And not getting the whole story.
Yeah.
And point too with when now President Donald Trump ran against Hillary, and the emails were exposed, right? And all those emails, and I don't think anything came about of that, right?
No,
Nothing came about when when it was found. I believe it was found that she had emails and security was breached in the White
yeah, I
House.
mean, there's a lot of these things. Or when she, paid for what's called the Steele dossier to basically give to the court. It was the FISA court to allow the government to spy on her opponent while running for office. It's election interference right there. There's so many crimes there, but they don't do a darn thing about it. Now, I'm not saying this because I dislike one candidate and like the other candidate. I'm trying to be objective here. You have Joe Biden right before the election against Trump, and they found a laptop that was his son Hunter Biden's that had so much incriminating evidence about so many things. And a respectable newspaper that's been around since the 1800s, the New York Post, has the evidence, and they report it right before the election. And they say that is not credible evidence, that's fake news. To find out months later, they knew all along it was real, and the Department of Justice was able to shut down um, people from reporting it accurately, and it could have changed the election. But we don't focus on those issues. We only focus on the ones that we want to focus on, and it's not freedom anymore when some side of the one side of the political aisle or the other can get away with a lot, while the other one, they're trying to find charges to get the person behind bars to take away your opponent. And it's not necessarily because I support one and just like the other. I'm just concerned because this gets switched completely. Do we have a free society anymore when we cannot, you know, run for office without, doing not nefarious things, but criminal things, and not reporting the news? I mean, the press, the freedom of the press is the most important thing, because without the First Amendment, we don't have anything.
Yes, sir.
And yet, we're taking our rights away exponentially each and every year, to the point where there was just a report right now with let me think. It's a dozen congressmen have been spied on. I mean, where is the outrage? But you have the people on The View, the show The View, and no matter what happens, I mean, President Biden could have had full blown Alzheimer's in office and they wouldn't report it. But Trump misspeaks, misstates one thing, and all of a sudden, does he have the mental fortitude and capacity to serve as the president? I mean, how can you say that when you
Right.
saw somebody who couldn't articulate a sentence? He just read off a prompter and was nowhere to be seen for 4 years.
Right.
It just makes no sense. And again, I'm not trying to be political. I'm just trying to be objective here. But things aren't adding up, and I'm questioning. And I'm just curious as to why. And we all should. We should all be furious. Again, not because one side is right and the other side is wrong. We're all living in the same society.
Yes,
We
sir.
all have to abide by the same rules. We're not.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
what we're fighting for here is freedom of speech. And I will fight the most extreme cases on both sides of the political aisle if it makes sense for the best interest of this country, because we're not going to have a country if we continue down this path, and it only gets worse exponentially.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a politician. That's a politician. That's why I asked her. I got it out the way, y'all.
Yeah.
He never say never. He could run again. So that's a fire. That's a passion coming out. Why, Mr. Turk, why do you feel we're so polarized around the Epstein files being released? Why are we topsy turvy about it?
Uh, the Epstein files is crazy because people forget for 4 years Biden was in office. Why didn't they release it then? Right? Do I know why they're not releasing it now? No. Does it make me feel comfortable that the files weren't released? No. Do I agree that Epstein committed suicide? No. Was I told that he did? Yes. But I don't know what those reasons are, and we should be able to question them. And we should have honest dialect and honest answers. I think the Epstein files. Yeah, I have my own opinion. I'm sure everyone does. You do as well. But I think it just shows you that we don't have a system that is fair for all.
Sh-
Because if it was you or me, or you or I doing the things behind the Epstein files, I think those things would have been released and we would have been in jail for life.
Do you, do you feel we should forget about it, or should they be released?
Absolutely not. We should just have questions answered because the government works for the people. The people don't work for the government. And, you know, at one time when the Constitution was written, you take the first president, George Washington. Um, it was done so differently back then, but you have to understand the history to know what this country meant and what it means today. So you have this country that you didn't even, when George Washington ran for office, he didn't even run and say, "I am running." He thought that was too much of me, me, me. But he got elected. He got offered. People said, "You need to be the president," and there was enough people that said, "You need to do that." That he decided, "Okay, I'll run for office." It wasn't about him at all, and he didn't want to become a career politician. He didn't want to, you know,
He didn't want to
see
run
a
for a third term.
no, and he didn't want to see a nation that was political. You saw that in England, and he didn't want there to be parties. I mean, I think a big problem is we have political parties because it means that there's three. Now, being a Republican, there's about probably just for purposes of this conversation, let's say there's 100 things a Republican believes in a checklist. Pro-life, small government, this, that. Democrats, the same thing. But how can you be a Republican and stand for all 100 things in that checklist, or how can you be a Democrat and agree with all 100 things what it means to be a Democrat? But you have to pick a side because being an independent means that you really have no voice. But who's really deciding what the Republican viewpoint is? Who's really deciding what the Democrat viewpoint is? And why can't there ever be a third party that could come in and just be the balance of the two? Or here's a novel idea. Why don't we take away all political parties whatsoever and have people run for what they believe in and not have to agree with all or none? And running for office, you realize you have to compromise your integrity to really do what you need to do. And the one thing I do like, not the one thing, there's many things, but a thing that nobody talks about with the MAGA movement was it appears that the president didn't like the blue blood Republican ideology. So what he did was he created his own uh, movement within the blue blood ideology. Same thing that's happening to Democrats. I mean, it's like two or three parties within the party. There's the progressives, which I don't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me at all. But then you have the the ones that you could, you know, converse with and have a discussion with, like Fetterman, for example. Um, he's really the Democrat that is more aligned with middle of the road and balance versus the extreme where I can name, Ilhan Omar, AOC, Rashid Tlaib. I mean, they're so far extreme that if you allowed them to do what they want to get accomplished, we would no longer be a republic. We would be a socialist country, which will lead to a communist country, would lead to destruction. I mean, there's no way that, if you follow history, that will ever succeed. When somebody's working 12 hours a day and the next person's working 4 hours a day and they're both getting the same pay and getting the same benefits, I mean, the struggle is what makes people succeed. They don't want to pass the torch to the next generation
Mhm.
in a way that was worse than they got it. And
Absolutely.
that's what it makes, and that's why family means something, because family is going to be the one that supports you. You lose your job, you can't afford your rent, you're borderline homeless. At least you could go to your family and say, I'm going to have to stay here for a while. I'll get my act together, but I have a
That,
place to stay.
that's what's
But you
happening.
take
That's what's
away the
happening now.
family. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's ridiculous. Here, I live in Boca Raton, and houses that cost $500,000 now cost $2 million over 5, 6 years, maybe 8 years max. So, how are people affording this? I mean,
They
the
can't.
struggle is real.
They
I
can't.
mean, and I don't mean to sound like, oh, I'm insensitive because I'm talking about Boca, but it's the same thing. I mean, everywhere around here. I mean, to earn an honest pay, you have to get a second job just to afford it. If you did not have the equity built up because you owned a house 10 years ago, it's amazing.
It's a scary market. It's a
Yeah.
scary, scary market right now. Uh, as a former attorney to President Donald Trump, what was the most legally complex issue you handled?
You know, I I wasn't the one that's took lead counsel in a lot of things. I was just sitting in the room, giving strategies to others that were putting their names on the documents and really being in the front line of the battle. The hardest thing was just really seeing what was going on and trying to deal with so many issues at the same time, and trying to get justice in a world or in a country that so polarized that you have judges that you feel that are just as political or appointed by political officials that justice is no longer justice. It's whatever that judge wants the result to be, and willing to make new law in order to get their way.
So
That's
although you
scary.
didn't sit, yeah. So although you didn't sit on most first chair positions,
Yeah.
overall, most cases were probably difficult because of who's sitting in the judge's chair.
Yeah. So one of the cases that we worked on was the biggest case was getting a lot of evidence. There's two. One of the things that when I worked with Peter, he was working on primarily was first was Hillary Clinton and getting enough information to articulate a lawsuit against Hillary Clinton, against a system that is not going to work with you. And then also after January 6th, and really understanding um, how politicized January 6th was and trying to get some resolution there. And it's scary. I mean, it's very scary that what has happened and how the truth, at least again with the iceberg analysis that I gave you, a lot of things haven't been reported and a lot of questions haven't been answered. Like somebody who had committed nothing. The COO of my charity committed a nonviolent act. I mean, do I think the smartest thing he ever did was to walk through the Capitol building? Absolutely not. But there's a lot of reasons why people did it, and they thought it was a peaceful protest. At least he did, and the majority of the people did. I mean, it wasn't a insurrection because nobody had weapons there. Police were given a tour. It was almost like they were tour guides. I mean, come on in, let me show you around. Go in, but please go out. Nothing like what the press has reported. But why did they do that? I mean, I have my reasons, but getting back to this, so here's a guy who never really committed a crime in his life. I don't say really. I don't think he ever committed a crime in his life, and he would have self-reported or he would have turned himself in. He was working with counsel, but rather than him turning himself in to the authorities, they decided to take taxpayer dollars and plenty. I think it was 18 people came, raided his house with guns pointed at him and his children to arrest him. That's to
That's
break
scary.
him and then to put him into solitary confinement. Um, that's not the country that you and I were promised as children. It's just not. And what scares me is that there are enough people out there, a big percentage of the population that are okay with it because they didn't agree with Trump. They despise the man. So anybody who likes that man is an insurrectionist because it's a mockery of the United States of America, and he is the epitome of that to that ideology, rather than realize that he too will pass. And the one thing that we really need to protect more than anything is the U.S. Constitution. And when we forget about that Constitution, then we don't have a republic anymore.
Absolutely. I gotta. This is good. I have a tricky question, and I don't know which position, because you're juggling many things, and so you have your law firm, and you have the American Rights Alliance, and so how do you choose which cases or causes, right? Causes for your nonprofit or cases to take on legally. How do you choose which cases or causes to support legally or financially?
Okay, so I'll start with my law firm because that's easy. I work with great people who help generate referral business, and I don't really advertise. I have blessed to have the right clients, and I have to say no often, but it's doing the stuff that I really uh, that the things that are really time consuming is family law. And so I took on a great friend of mine from law school that's an amazing attorney. So he works with me on those family law cases because if you take on a family law case, it's like um, it's taken on like having I hate to say it, but it's a good analogy. It just sounds wrong. It's like having a baby. Um, you're going to get interrupted throughout the day. There's never a moment where you know 2 3 days go by without some surprise. But you have to be there for the client because you're also their um, psychiatrist, their advocate, their friend. So that's a challenge. So I don't take on that many family law cases. I really just help provide counsel for strategy. So
Absolutely.
So with the estates and trusts, I've done it for so many years. Asset protection. Um, I know how to delegate, but I oversee what I need to see, and I have an amazing group of people that really have been with me for since day one, and they're like my extended family. I mean, they're really close to me, and I lean on them. So with the charity, I have a great COO of the charity who gets to really make those decisions, and he basically tries to sell to me what cases they are, and I look at these cases as really how are we going to make the biggest change to society with these with limited resources, because each case, I mean, we have to hire outside counsel. Outside counsel could be, six figures. I mean, it gets expensive. So I really have to focus on raising money. I have to focus on um, picking and choosing what is going to be the biggest impact to the largest amount of people. And the hardest thing is to say no, because everyone has a story. Everyone has a reason they need our help. We take on cases that we really feel that are the largest, a bottom, like, what do you even say that, the just the most ridiculous impingements on your freedom that you could even imagine.
Yes, sir.
And you start there and you work your way down.
What's the thank you for that. That thank you for taking the time to explain both aspects from the trust and from the legal standpoint and your firm. What's the alliance's long-term strategy for influencing the Supreme Court in terms of continuing to fight for freedom of speech and Americans' rights?
So there's this thing that people don't realize, at least most people who are normal. It's called an amicus brief. I'm sure you haven't heard about it
No,
or
sir.
even though it exists, or have you?
No, sir.
Okay.
You
You're
caught me
normal.
red-handed.
No, no. So it's called an amicus brief. It's a nice Latin term for friend of the court. And it is a way that you see these cases that are in front of the United States Supreme Court that they're arguing from one side of it or the other, whatever the case is. There's both sides, obviously, but uh, whatever position you're on, you also have the ability to file these. It's called an amicus brief. It's a brief. It's a document that the Supreme Court, if you're sworn into the United States Supreme Court, you could submit on behalf of. You're not a party to the case, but you're submitting on behalf of a party on the case, and the whole purpose of it is to explain to the Supreme Court in this case why they should consider this versus that, or how this has a long term impact that they may not have considered, or may not have been an argument that was already presented to the court. And so, what we end up doing is trying to, on cases that matter, and all cases matter, but cases that are going to have a big uh, impact onto one decision that's going to make a major difference versus just a trivial one. We try to suggest to the court, or I don't want to use the word influence, but to provide information to the court that they may have not considered in helping them come to a decision that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And thank you for breaking that down. Again, you caught me red-handed. I had no idea that that's the thing, and I imagine people seeing this and watching this had no idea as well. And we had that in our whole. That's why we need legal counsel, right? That's why we need good legal. Let me stress that word. We need good legal counsel
Yes.
to arm us with
Yes.
these kinds of informations. Um, I can't help but go back to um human rights. And one of the things the nation is seeing right now is is the polarization that's being brought on in politics right now. Um do you f- I, I feel like we go through this dance. I served in the United States Navy. I feel like we go through this political dance every couple of years with government shutdowns and everything in between. But never, but this, I think, I don't, in my lifetime, I'll say for me, I've never been so engaged until now. I've never paid
Mhm,
so much attention to the rhetoric and to what's
mhm.
happening. Do you feel Democrats are intentionally weaponizing the legal system, um, in regards to like January 6th, where we saw all those cases, and the riots and the protests and the legal battle with that? Or is this just another dance? Is this all political theater that, for the media, it's the Democrats, the Republicans, but then when we meet behind doors, we're shaking hands, we're having an actual conversation. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, in my short political career, I can tell you one thing I learned is that you will never get anywhere in life without having people raise money for your position, unless you are self-funded. And
Independent.
yeah, but that brings other issues as well, because then, only the one percenters of society can be in office to do that, right? Even the president right now, he had to rely on funding, because once you get to that level, I mean, the war chest is large. So then you become beholden to everybody. And who are you really preaching? And I learned this when I ran. It was a very quick lesson. It's like, you know, you agree with so many things, but if you do this, you can't do that. And so now you are becoming the word politician. You're being a politician, right? You are pandering to your audience because you need them, and behind the scenes, you may not agree with any of them. I mean, and it's also these people who are providing the news. I mean, there are certain people that are on CNN right now that I know, I don't have firsthand knowledge, but I have just as close as firsthand knowledge as I could have, that they don't believe the nonsense that they're spewing out of their own mouth. So they're a character that they're playing. They're a voice that they're beholden to. The question that scares me is, who is paying for that voice, and what is their overall agenda? Is it, you know, globalization? Is it because they believe that you know climate change is so significant that the world's going to change if we don't fix it? Is it the population? It needs to be more integrated so that you can control and have more people in your political side so you could keep your power. I mean, just take the question as to, under the Biden administration, um, why they couldn't stop those who are not allowed to come into this country legally. Why are they punishing people who are doing it legally and rewarding those who didn't? I mean, is it to pander to get votes eventually, or is there something even more sinister? But nobody could answer that. And I don't think anybody with good conscience can say that it's an acceptable practice to allow people that have not been vetted to come into this country. And, it wasn't, people seeking freedom. I mean, there were sexual trafficking. There were children that were used as ploys because they could claim that, I have my child, you can't separate my child, but it's not their child. I mean, what's really going on, and what's the truth? And why is it okay when Obama was in office, he put people in cages, but the media didn't say anything? And then they showed the videos of the kids in cages, and the whole people on The View went into an uproar, but they never even reported that those videos were during the Obama administration. And why don't they care that it was okay and accepted under his administration? And Trump in his first administration, tried to fix the problem. I mean, why are we so against the wall when it costs so less? It's much cheaper than having undocumented people coming in here? And at what point do you have to say it's okay when you have innocent lives being abused, taken advantage of to gangs from other countries? When do we stick up for ourselves? When do we unite as a country, as America? In times of war, World War II in particular, but even after 9/11, I mean, people didn't care what political aisle you were on. They didn't care what color your skin was. They didn't care about any of that. Why all of a sudden do we care, and why are we have so much animus towards one another? I mean, why are we saying for this job we don't care who the best and the most qualified is? We just care about, does it check this box? We make a movie. Do we care that it's historically accurate, or do you need, for the sense of diversity, all of these people? At what level of common sense, at what point do we take away common sense, and at what level are we ever going to be happy with diversity? I mean,
I like I
it just
told you
makes no
before.
sense.
Yeah, one of the things that I told you before is I think I've never paid closer attention to to the political arena until these past couple of years. I had no idea. For example, I had no idea, and it just came out. I had no idea that someone who's on Medicaid, there's no checks and balances between states for a Medicaid recipient. And so in this last election, I got the text messages, "Hey, do you believe that we should overfund Medicaid or and overfund it and there be a little bit of waste and a little bit of fraud, or we should underfund it or get rid of it?" And
Yeah.
when I saw the article that people, and I didn't understand it. I had no idea, but it seemed so simple. We have a program that's Medicaid, and people had numerous Medicaid plans in various states. And they had Medicaid in New Jersey, they had Medicaid in Virginia, they had
Yeah.
Medicaid in Florida. And I was like, why do you have all three plans? And there's no system to check to make sure that this person um is not registered in another state and they're already on the program and they're receiving benefits in multiple states, and we
Yeah.
never thought to build a check and balance system around that. That was
No, I mean,
shocking to me.
yeah, the thing is that we are the premise of this country is there are 50 separate states that have that should have somewhat of autonomy, and that there's very little that the federal government needs to do, but that's the glue that keeps all 50 states together. I mean, and that's why they signed the Constitution, right? I mean, you know, the values of California aren't the same values of Florida, clearly. So each state's different. So the government says, we're going to sponsor, we'll pay, I think it's like 80 something percent. Let's just, for a purpose of this conversation, let's just say the federal government's going to be using 80%, but the states are going to come in and contribute the rest of it to 20%. So each state says, okay, we're going to contribute 20%. But we know in Florida how to spend the money more effectively here because we are here and we want to get the most bang for our dollar. And this is how we're going to do it. Whereas California says, no, we're not going to pay 20%. We're going to pay a lot more because we have income tax and we have other things that we want to do. And as a society, within the society, as Californians, this is what we want. The Republic of California, as they call it. And so that they make their own rules. And each state's a little different. I mean, California, they don't even call it Medicaid. They call it, I think it's Medi-Cal. And it's crazy because my aunt was a recipient of Medicaid in California. And what they get compared to Florida, they get everything compared to Florida.
Really?
But that's why we don't pay income tax. So the question you ask is a great point, is what's the balance? Because either people abuse the system or people are abused because the system's not fair to them. And in Florida, for example, age-related Medicaid, nursing home Medicaid, perfect example. You have to, in Florida, to qualify, you have to spend down all your assets to below $2,000. But
I've heard of
there
that.
are all these exceptions. So You could have a house that's worth $700,000 as long as you state that you intend to return there. You could still keep the house. And the idea is, you don't want, you know, people who are close to death sell a house, pay the taxes on it, and then 2 minutes later they're gone, right?
Right.
You also want to make sure that people protect their inheritance and things of that nature. And I understand a lot of it, but the the way that they handle it is it could be completely unfair. You have somebody who has a $700,000 house and they have $100,000 in the bank and they spend $100,000 on a car that they'll never drive and then the house they'll never live in and qualify. And you have somebody who has 10,000 and there's entire life savings and they disqualify for Medicaid because they have to spend eight. They have to get below two.
What if I put
That's wrong.
the house in my son or daughter, the deed, and I put it over to my son or daughter, and I don't own that $700,000 house? Is that proper estate planning
Yeah, but
or
that's
evasion?
no, it's you're not going to qualify for Medicaid anymore because it's a gift. It's a transfer of value then for less than fair market value. So in Florida, I'm only speaking of Florida, that house is considered an exempt asset for purposes of Medicaid.
So it's exempt altogether.
Except, but if you sell it or you don't state that you have an intent to return home, you could have full onset Alzheimer's, not know your name, not be able to, if you're in a nursing home, you pretty much need 24-hour care, 7 days a week. The likelihood of you returning home is like as close to 0%. But all you have to do is state on that application that you have an intent to return to the house, and that asset becomes exempt. I understand all of it, and I'm in agreement with it, but I'm not in agreement with the fact is that the reality is that you have some people that need it more than others, but because they don't have the proper means to even afford legal counsel, they don't get it, and all of a sudden they're disqualified, or they run out of money and then they're in a subpar facility because they have to be accepted somewhere. But all of a sudden their entire life savings has gone down the drain.
Do you believe Medicaid expansion has helped or hurt low income Americans?
I think that when Bill Clinton was in office, he revised it, and I agree with a lot of it. But it's just you're taking a pool of money and you're giving it, dispersing it differently. Um, I think it could be done better, but I think that it's better than any other idea that's been out there. It's the same thing with health insurance. You tell me how to fix health insurance costs. You go to the doctor. I mean, a doctor should be paid, for spending 1/3 of their life in school. I mean, think about it. But
A
elementary
lot of
school, middle
school.
school, high school, college. Then after college, you get to medical school. Then you have to pretty much
Intern,
intern and
residency.
residency. I have a friend. I'm 48 years old. He just became a doctor at 48. He decided to have a change of life scenario, and I always joke. I said people are going to want to hire you like big time because they're going to think you have so much experience and you have less experience than the guy who's like 35 years old or 32. That's like right out of med school.
Jeez Louise. Uh, Do you is Donald Trump our best hope for constitutional conservatism? Is he our best hope for America?
I think he's our best hope for America. You could argue constitutional conservatism. Um, I mean, like right now, there's a Supreme Court case going on about the tariffs, right? Now, do I agree with what he did? Absolutely. I mean, why punish American workers and encourage American jobs to be left and gone overseas? We need to do something. So we have a system that put billions of dollars back into the economy. And everyone said that, the stock market's going to crash, the world's going to end. None of that happened. In fact, we have billions and billions of dollars back here from the tariffs. And now the Supreme Court is going to rule it. Now, is it an emergency action that justifies it? What bothers me, infuriates me, is the filing of it, because it's the destruction of our nation. No one's going to benefit from giving away hundreds of billions of dollars that could be used here. Let's give it back to foreign countries. It's asinine. But that's not the question you asked me. You asked me about the Constitution, and that's the hard thing. It's the same thing about freedom of speech. This is one of the hardest decisions, because I want the Supreme Court to follow the Constitution, but I also want the Supreme Court to rule in Donald Trump's favor, because I think I know it's in the best interest of this country. And that's the challenge that I have every day. And that's when you have to articulate as a clever attorney. And that's the purpose of your amicus briefs right there, is to articulate why it does make sense.
If you could rewrite one part of the Constitution, what would it be and why?
The first thing I have to say is that the most racist thing in the Constitution was counting Black people as 2/5 of a person. So it would make sure that never was in the Constitution in the first place, right? Voting rights for women weren't, enacted until like the early 1900s. There are a lot of things in the Constitution that I don't necessarily agree with. I mean, but we didn't amend the Constitution that much over the years, and I agree with the way the Constitution was written, because you shouldn't have the ability to make the Constitution evolve unless there's an overwhelming majority of people wanting it to happen, because it's a slippery slope. But to address your questions in the Constitution, that I think they should have clarified the Second Amendment a little bit more, just because it leaves room for debate. And I think that alone, but those are the amendments of the Constitution. So fundamentally, I agree with the Constitution's purpose. And I think that no matter what they wrote, that document's, written in the 1700s. And they
And we
wrote it
haven't touched
better
it
than we
too
could.
much.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about, I think it's the Constitution. We have the longest, we are such a new country, but we have the oldest Constitution. It's quite interesting. And I think the best thing about the Constitution is knowing what your rights are, and knowing that they were written at a time where these people were in their 20s and 30s, and they were so ahead of their time. I mean, so ahead. I mean, every night when I go to sleep, I listen to it. It's like the most boring thing, but it's the most, it puts me to sleep right away. But I get an education. I learn about all these presidents, and what it was like to be in their life at their time. And so incredibly interesting. I was listening to Garfield. He was assassinated the other day, and he could have been one of the best presidents. He was way ahead of his time. He was the one that basically said that he fought for equal rights before anybody. And he was assassinated by a person who thought he was going to be the next president. He was crazy. But we don't talk about Buchanan or Garfield, these presidents. And I'm trying to think. There is one here. Let me look on my phone, because I was listening to it the other day.
It stuck with you?
Oh no, it's the most
It's-
interesting thing that I'm sure you've never heard. And I could let me say president. It's the craziest thing I ever heard. It's like the worst president that you never heard of is Franklin Pierce. Have you ever heard of Franklin Pierce?
I have not. No,
Okay.
sir.
That's how I had to look at my phone, because I even forgot his name. It's the most forgotten president, one of the least memorable, and he was only a one-term president. But the craziest thing, back then, all these presidents, they lost. I mean, not all these presidents. People back then in the 1700s, you had to have 10 kids to have two that would pass, survive, and enter adulthood, right? So Franklin Pierce, just like all of these presidents at that time, had 5 children. I think he was down to one. He becomes president of the United States. He's now president elect. So he's now hasn't been sworn in yet. He won the election. He goes on a train with his family to New Hampshire, I guess from Washington, D.C., and the train falls off the track. I can't make this up. And his son gets his head cut off. Literally, shrapnel cuts his head off. And like a month later, he's the president of the United States. And that was his last child. I mean, things like that are just crazy. And we don't talk about it, right? I mean, I just saw your expression. I mean, just amazing stuff that we could learn from history. But to understand the Constitution, you have to understand what was going on at that time and what they were fighting for, and understand how it relates to today. I'm a big constitutionalist. I really believe the Constitution should be the law of the land, even if I don't agree with it. And I'm being challenged right now with these tariffs because I'm really for the tariffs. Um, we just need to find a better argument.
Yes, sir. I have two last questions, and this is you your thoughts on prenuptial agreements, postnuptial agreements. Um, for CEOs, high income earning professionals, what are your thoughts on prenuptial agreements, postnuptial agreements?
I think Chris Rock said it best. It's not for high professional CEOs. It's for the person who has $40,000 as their entire life savings, and they have to give up half, right?
Right.
20,000 doesn't seem a lot, but when you have 40,000 your entire life savings, that's a big nut, right? It's a big number. But to address your question, I think it's really challenging because you have to put faith in life, and there was a time where um, people got married when they said "I do." They never said "I don't" anymore, and I'm not good at marriages. I'm good at finding future ex wives. That's really my specialty. But nothing says I love you more than a prenuptial agreement. But I think it really sets the boundaries of everything. I just don't know. And I'm a huge proponent of prenuptial agreements. My last divorce, we had a postnuptial agreement because we were fighting all the time, and we decided, all right, you know what? Let's get this out of the way. And it was the best thing. It was the easiest divorce because we already defined exactly what each and every one was going to get. But it's tough. I mean, marriage it's a tough situation now because there is no stigma about a bad marriage. I mean, leaving a bad marriage and going to a divorce.
How do you convince a partner to agree to a postnuptial agreement, because you're that's after the fact? That's difficult in itself.
Well, yeah, no, it really is. But I do a lot of postnuptial agreements
Really?
because, yes, because like I recently did one. Husband and wife love each other, but they're fighting because they both put different sacrifices into the business, and they own two businesses. And you know, the one spouse is saying, "You want me to put all my effort into this business? It's going to allow, or it's going to destroy my business." And by doing that, I want to have some commitment. God forbid, this work doesn't work out. Um, it's tough when there's one. It's typically the woman that's at home raising the children, and she's underemployed because she's doing something that's just as valuable. In many cases, more valuable is, giving up their future to raise children. And you have to, as a man, I look at it differently because I work my butt off, but you have to have the understanding of what the sacrifice that spouse has contributed to the marriage. The biggest problem that I have is when you have a trophy wife that has contributed nothing, or it's only caused pain into the marriage, hasn't been faithful. I mean, it goes both ways, but I'm a man, so I look at it from my perspective. And then all of a sudden it's taking half of everything, if not more, right?
Right.
Or using children as manipulation. All of a sudden, I see this a lot. They get the child, the second or third child years later as the anchor into the marriage, but they didn't do it, because they wanted to bring a baby in this world. They just wanted to do it for financial stability. I can argue this on both sides. I wrote a book. It was originally called "Divorce Your Wife, Not Your Wealth," but I changed it to be gender neutral. Divorce your spouse, not your wealth. Um, haven't
Smart.
yet published it. It's written. I'm just going to do it when the time comes to do it, because I don't want to do something um, without full commitment, and I just have a lot going on. But going back to your question, it's critically important. It's where you stand. It's also your values. Um, you know, I went to law school. I gave up a lot of money in 4 years at night. I worked during the day in finance to pay my bills, and I put myself through law school. Sat for two bars simultaneously, the Florida bar and the New Jersey bar, and I saw all my friends making a lot of money, and I was giving a lot up until such time that I can, pay back my debt and do everything else. And then all of a sudden, you meet somebody who, you know, I'm not talking about my ex-wife, so I don't want to insinuate that, but all of a sudden you meet somebody who you fall head over heels for, and your emotional side takes over your logical side, and you want to help that person because you have financial means now, and you want to, show to that person that you are, as a man, you are capable of being a provider to that woman. It's what we do. And all of a sudden, let's assume she entered that marriage with not under false pretenses, but she had nothing to lose. You had everything to lose, and now you're going to give up everything. I mean, it's just I've seen businesses fail time and again because you don't have a prenuptial agreement, you don't have a postnuptial agreement, you don't have an understanding. You just say we're going to last forever. Yeah, we're going to last forever until that ever turns into life's too long to last forever. And what do you do?
I,
So, big proponent of postnuptial agreements, big proponent of prenuptial agreements. The way it's got to be handled is through a lawyer. It's going to be tactful. And, in my free time, if I had 2, 3 extra lives that I had free time, I would write a book about how to propose to your wife or how to propose to your spouse through a prenuptial agreement.
I I think I agree with you. I think they are not the thing that TV makes them out to be. It's not me and my lawyer, and there's this long desk, and we're sliding you a piece of paper. It I One of the things I always heard lawyers say is it removes all the preconceived notions. It removes the mystery on who gets what, who gets where, what state are we in? Are we under Florida law? Are we under New Jersey law? It removes the
Yeah,
mystery so we can just focus on the love, right? Because
yeah,
you already know what you're entitled to, and we discussed it in advance. So all that's
yeah.
left is the love and is the marriage. We can now focus on that because we've already figured out everything else.
Absolutely. And there's one other point too. 50 years ago, it was nearly impossible for a woman to enter the workforce and to make as much money as the man. Now, that barrier is removed, and I feel like women n- may not have benefited from that because there's a much more expectation, and takes away from the family values. But women, because of the nature of the fact that they are the ones that carry the baby, are the ones that are, even if they're the most successful woman and they're the breadwinner, there's going to be a period of time where they have to take time away from their work. And I don't know if most women, even if they're the breadwinner, want a man that's going to be at home taking care of their children. I just don't see that often. But the times have changed, and
The
the
laws
laws
haven't
haven't
changed with
caught
it.
up. Yeah,
The laws haven't changed with it.
no, no. I
We
mean, there's that Kanye West song that is always in my mind. So and then we find out when when the kid's 18, it wasn't his.
what shocked me is, again, like you said, I met a CEO. She's a CEO. She only deals with other CEOs. She does their taxes. She started a trucking company, bought 6 trucks, doing very well. And
Yeah.
having a conversation with her, she's like, "I want a provider." And I just my mind was blown. I said, "Do you understand that you make more money than most men in your profession, and you're telling guys that are interested in dating you that you want them to pay all the expenses? That
I
doesn't
understand it.
logically make sense."
I understand it from because it's not logical. Women aren't logical. They're biological and they're emotional, and they don't. They expect time and again. Most women I talk to say this. They expect their man to be the provider. It doesn't matter if they make $1 million. They won't respect you if you're not making 2 million. So they want you if they can do it, they have no respect for you if you can't do it. And I get it. It's they want to feel like that they have somebody who they can make their money, but they can not make their money and they can turn it down. And it's just the nature of who women are, and it's nothing wrong with that. It's just you have to understand that, and you have as a man, like I think it would be difficult for me to look at myself in the mirror, go to work and every day, um, and feel like that I can't provide because that's who we are. But I understand you because for years I felt that way. For years I felt that way. But it takes away who you are, your self worth, if you can't do that as well, just from
But
an emotional, from a male perspective. However,
but
I've
men
also
don't do
never,
that. Men don't
I
do that. 50 years
no,
ago, men did not look at a woman and say, "You need to make as much money as me." But women
no,
have created that standard for men. But a
yeah,
man can see a woman's value and she doesn't make $1 million. I could
yeah.
see a man sees a woman's value outside of financial gains, outside of monetary, but women do. And now
Yeah,
you make a
but
man
it's
feel
it's
less because he doesn't make more.
yeah, but it's the same question. I'll ask you. I'll change the fact pattern right now. Okay.
Okay.
Would you want to? Would you want, as a man, would you want to be with a woman who is you're not physically attracted to? That uh, whether whether she's overweight or she's just doesn't take care of herself. Like the woman, from a male's perspective, is a reflection of who the man is, right? Like you want to be the man and you want to have that woman next to you and you want to be seen with that woman, right? A woman, take Bill Belichick's girlfriend. She's like 12, right? Like 26 years old. There's no shame in that, right? But if it was reversed, if there was you know, 60, late 60s, you know,
Wom-
successful woman with a 22-year-old man, everybody would be talking about it. I mean, it's just there is double standards, but that's not bad. It's just knowing how you work and knowing what you want. And as I got older, I realized, when you start being in a position where you can make money, you want to be that person because it gives you your own self worth, your own value. You just don't want to be the man that's being taken for. You don't want to be the man that goes through a divorce and loses everything. All those things you don't, and that's why you need to hire me because I can protect you with a prenuptial agreement, right? You just need a
Absolutely.
good prenuptial agreement, but you need to figure it out the right way. Nothing says I love you more than sign this document, right?
Absolutely.
But you said it best because you were quoting someone else. It's like it takes away
All the work,
the ifs. Yeah,
all the extra. Absolutely.
yeah,
This has been a phenomenal conversation,
yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Kirk. Final words. What's your message to that young lawyer who's currently in school and going down the path to be and looking at you and seeing how successful all the things you've accomplished, and they want to fight for American law? What would you say to that young lawyer getting their feet wet or coming into the industry? Any advice?
Yeah, find what makes you happy. Know what you're good at, and find a way, to make a career that is going to not only reward you financially, but reward you um, emotionally every day that you're going to want to get up and work, because life is going to be too long to do something you hate every single day. Don't follow the money. Be the best at what you can do, and the money will follow you.
Absolutely. And that's family law, right?
Family law, estates and trust, asset protection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How can people connect with you? How can people buy the book? It's out available now. How can people find you and learn more?
The easiest way is go on my website. It's www.turklawgroup.com. It's right there. You're really good at doing that. I appreciate that. The charity is the American Rights Alliance.org, and we're all over social media. If you have Real America's Voice on your TV on Saturdays, watch me at 4 o'clock, or just follow me on social media. It's Evan W. Turk, ESQ. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me. I don't keep myself a secret, but Turk Law Group, because you're going to need to hire an attorney to do a prenup. You're going to hire to do a postnup. You're going to also need to hire me to make sure that your family money stays within your family and it doesn't go to that divorcing spouse, or even worse, your children's divorcing spouse. So
Lose your whole
when
family.
I ran for office, it was hire Turk because Turk will work. But hire me because Turk will work for you.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right, y'all. We got to let this incredible man go. We are out of time, and he has many more lives to change, many more people to impact, and he's booked solid. He's booked. He's a busy man. But
Yeah.
Mr. Turk, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and insight and having this conversation. I really appreciate you, sir.
Oh, thank you for giving me the tools, and I really appreciate talking to you. You do something that you're not even aware of. You're an amazing listener, and you made me talk more than I'm used to talking. And you don't know me well yet, but you got me. You got me to get words out of my mouth for an hour and a half. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, y'all. We got to let him go. Like we always end every show. Take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and the incredible Mr. Evan W. Turk, Esquire, signing off. Get a lawyer, get a prenup today. Reach out. Love you guys. Bye.